your vision, your mission, and your strategic goals. What I'm going to share with you is the PowerPoint I used in August with my senior leadership to kind of frame up the strategic course that we're going to be embarked upon in the coming years. I'll go through that exactly as I presented it to my senior staff, and then since it gets into strategic goal setting and some of the strategic goals, I'll also share with you some of our data-driven corporate performance measures, because a broad goal could mean 100 different things to 100 different people. It's metrics and performance data. It's, I assure you, when you follow your career to levels like this, you're going to want to need feedback. You'll have a welter of opinion no matter where you turn. People always look to the people with the best data. Usually are the answer people. And engineers, in any kind of an executive branch division or decision, the engineers comport themselves very well because we are numbers-based, analytical, and we have the skill set that we've learned to do analysis, and it really has served me well. So with that, I'm going to one of the privileges of being a director is you no longer make your own PowerPoints. All right. This one my slide, and I think it's a reference to a Mayan prediction or something. I don't expect the world to end on December 21st, but I do know that the Nebraska Department, the symbols that you see here represent 4 different documents that we've published recently, some as long as 13 years ago at the Department of Roads. But if you're one of my employees, you wonder, do we have a strategic plan? Is it coherent? Are these documents in conflict with each other? Because the Vision 2032, just recently completed, is a long-range planning document looking at that 10,000-mile network of highways and envisioning what needs to be done to keep it in a state of good repair and to keep it operating at a good level of service and to keep it integrated with the other modes of transportation, aeronautics, rail. There is actually some waterway navigation along the Missouri River in this state, and of course pedestrian and bicycle modes, and transit. So it's a coordinated plan, strategic plan, looks out 20 years, and it itself has some strategic goals. But that's the macro world. That's not, if you're running an organization, you have to have strategic goals about your asset base. You also have to have strategic goals about your workforce and your internal control system. And so that's what some of these other documents were about. The strategic plan, as published in 1999, was the one I inherited. Is to be regarded as the premier transportation agency in the nation. So it's lofty, it's high-level stuff. Really, in a vision statement, you really want something that people can visualize, hence a vision statement. So what I've been telling my people is I don't want our citizens and our stakeholders to think of us as the butt of the old joke, what's yellow and sleeps for, a Department of Roads truck. I want them to think of us as competent people, well-trained people who are service-oriented and are there as good stewards of the highway system. It's the message I try to convey. That's my vision for the department. Our mission statement was in there, and it was developed by consensus, by committee, and you can tell it. In my opinion, it's an awful mission statement, and I'll recite it for you, but I think I'm the only one at the Department of Roads who can recite it. It says, our mission is to provide and maintain, in cooperation with public and private organizations, a safe, reliable, affordable, environmentally compatible, statewide transportation system for the movement of people and goods. So if you ask the guy behind the snowplow to say, what's your mission, that's just too much of a mouthful. I'm proposing that our new one be, we provide the best possible statewide transportation system, period. Beyond that, what it means and how we do it and what the quality control parameters are, we will express through a series of our overriding strategic goals. So that's what this PowerPoint gets to. The other two documents in here, this performance measures is our corporate performance measures, and it's a set of the data that really matters for us, and it's organized under the old regime. It needs to be retooled a little bit for my strategic goals, but it's very important, and we're going to give it a lot of prominence as we go forward. And finally, this asset management team report included our external assets and also probably what you would consider our internal assets that the traveling public is less concerned about, like our snowplow fleet, our equipment fleet, our building campus infrastructure, and kind of our internal human resources, computers, internal office assets are contained in the asset management team final report. So we said we need a strategic plan, and we need all of these competing plans and documents to be coherent and harmonized, so they need to be in one place. And it's a way for us to report our progress to our stakeholders, which we are an executive branch agency. I report directly to the governor, and we are responsible to the taxpayers who pay our bills. Our revenue is raised through tax on the gasoline you buy, and a tax on the motor vehicles that you register comes to the Department of Roads, gets in a trust fund, and it's our responsibility to use that money for its intended purpose and be good stewards of that 10,000-mile highway network. So when I assumed leadership, we had just published Vision 2032, and we're proud of it. And it has 4 overarching goals in it. We realized that we needed to harmonize the goals in this with the goals in the other areas so that our leadership team had a clear picture of where we wanted to take our agency. The group that actually took a year in the development of this agency Vision 2032 included many external partners, including MATC here at the university, sat on our development team, as well as representatives from Nebraska's League of Municipalities, county officials, Federal Highway Division, many internal staff, and it involved much public outreach, going out to public meetings, getting citizen input, getting input through our web, trying to take the pulse of the people who use our transportation system about what it needs to provide for the next 20 years. We also had an executive level steering committee. So its intent was to be a vision for all Nebraska citizens, stakeholder driven, getting toward a desired future, system oriented in the sense that even though our name is the Department of Roads, we do have a goal of integrating transit with passenger car, with surface transportation system, rail, rail, highway, the airports, the strategic air cargo, freight and passenger network in Nebraska, and the bicycle passenger is an increasingly important mode of transportation. We're responsible for the integration of the whole system. We'd like to be focused on results so that we have measures for how good is the highway network, how good is the pavement. We can measure it. What's our goal? Are we standing forward? Are we standing still, going forward, sliding back? See, because our revenues are derived from federal and state taxes. You know, the last one I've breezed over is we are unique to Nebraska. We couldn't pick Missouri's plan off the shelf. It wouldn't be customized for Nebraska. We have to develop this for our unique geographic situation. So as I mentioned, we had an extensive outreach to stakeholders. We did a survey using modern scientific methods to develop opinion surveys. We held summits where people could come in and interact face-to-face. We had 2 rounds of presentations to the League of Municipalities, District Highway Commission meetings, and the Association of County Officials. And the Nebraska has 3 metropolitan planning organizations: the Omaha Area Metro, the Lincoln Area Metro, and then up in the northeast part of the state, South Sioux City is part of Iowa's Sioux City metro region. And then we translated the vision into an action by a set of, as I said, there was a vision for the interoperability of a system, a set of goals, and I'll go through some of those goals. And then within goals, objectives are broken down into a little bit more finite, time-bound, results-oriented way than a goal is. Strategies are means to get there, and actions are tactics to carry out the strategies. The key to this is you start with broad goals that you have a consensus about. You're driven by your performance measures, though. Your goal is really defined by what it is that you're going to measure and what it is that matters for your performance. Together with that Vision 2032, as I said, we had other documents that had developed during other eras of the Department of Roads. We want to make sure that they're in harmony, they don't conflict with each other, that the goals are consistent from among those. And so there was, the previous director did a similar exercise 3 years ago and got the executive leadership around him, and that led to 5 what we called emphasis areas at the time. They have to be harmonized with our strategic goals, as well as our asset management team report that I spoke about. And we've published a strategic highway safety plan to try and drive the numbers of fatality and injuries down. Those goals needed to be harmonized into the strategic plan as well. So this is a action photo. I'm sorry, executives are not exactly action superheroes, but you know, you get these things together, you get your executive team around you, and you think these things through. How are we going to steer this big agency, and how are we going to communicate these goals from the guys who drive the snow plows or the guys who are managing the construction projects to ensure the quality of the materials and the so we took the various goals from the various documents and distilled them into a set of 8 overarching strategic goals. 4 from the Vision 2032 plus these 5 external partnerships, asset management, project delivery, and workforce development. And those have become the 8 strategic goals that we're going to So here they are. This is really what our performance is about. It needs to be framed in one of these 8 goals. Safety clearly is one of the keys. And when I say safety, there's 2 broad elements to safety. One is the number of fatalities that occur through highway crashes. We want to reduce that. We want to reduce it dramatically, and we have performance measures that I'll share with you on that. The other is the safety of the employees. They're exposed to traffic, they're exposed to occupational hazards, doing the work you need to do to keep this asset base up. Very important to us that we have good performance with employee safety. Mobility is the word we use for level of service. If you're in a traffic engineering class, this is about keeping level of service at B or higher, removing bottlenecks, mobility, one of our 8 strategic goals. Environmental stewardship is about the impact our transportation system has on the natural and human environment. And it's very essential to our stewardship of our drainage systems have to be compatible with the natural environment. Containing our runoff from our construction practices when we've opened up the vegetation and we're grading. The earth is very vulnerable to erosion and contamination of other sorts. We take great pride in what we do there. A lot of our project planning and project development involves decision making that's framed by the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and it's very critical to our performance when we're doing what we call project delivery. Coordination and cooperation is how we interact with the other people around us. I've got to be responsible to my boss, the governor. We have to be responsible to the Nebraska legislature, who annually does our appropriations. Cities, counties, metropolitan planning organizations, federal highway, university, citizens. The coordination and cooperation aspect of our business is very challenging. It's also very vital. If you don't do that right, you're not going to get the other pieces right. Workforce development, that's more in terms of continuous professional development for the technical people. Engineers naturally have a requirement to retain their license to have an ongoing curriculum of professional development, but our accountants need that as well, our right-of-way professionals, our attorneys. We need to continue to develop our workforce because you need to be continuously learning in the world that we live in these days. Plus, you have to develop successors. You know, demographics tell us that the baby boomers are retiring at a pretty brisk pace, and we need to bring the new generation on board and give them the opportunity to learn the business and succeed us. And so we're going to have a strategic plan to do that. Project delivery is what we call the creation of the plans. This is the concept part that the engineers do before it actually gets built by contractors. So that involves NEPA engineers designing roadways. All of that has to be done to meet a fiscal constraint. If you have a $200 million construction budget, you need to develop $200 million worth of projects. They have to be developed on time to be started in construction in the right window, because you can't build all your highways in Nebraska in December and January and February. So you have to have them ready to go, start construction in the fall or the spring, and they have to be completed on time. And it's a huge discipline in order to do that. And we employ about 150 engineers that help us deliver to carry out the project delivery part of our responsibility. Asset management strategic goal, that's about taking care of the 10,000-mile network, keeping the pavement in a state of good repair, keeping the bridges in a state of good repair, investing enough in the graders and excavators and front-end loaders and snow plows that it takes to operate the highway network, keeping your buildings in a state of good repair, budgeting for that. Again, you need to develop performance measures in order to tell you where you need to be investing your money or what will happen if you don't. And we think that rises to the critical level as the rest of these. And finally, fiscal responsibility. Since the monies we get are taxpayers' money, we're accountable to the citizens for what we do with our money. So everything we do, everything we invest our money in needs to be transparent, and we need to be accountable to the taxpayer, saying, this is why we spent your tax money here. It's to attain one of these 8 strategic goals, and here's how we're doing. And in many cases but the current revenue is performance measures for your pavement to slip from a rating of 85 to a rating of 74. So you have data-driven information to back up your. So this was the framework that I used to discuss this with my top leadership group. They've been broken up into teams, and each one of them have been assigned one of the strategic goals to either retain or supplement the existing corporate performance measures that we have relative to those 8 strategic emphasis areas. And we'll be reconvening at the end of this month in Nebraska City. We'll devote 2 days to going through in greater detail what performance measures we can set up to make sure that we're moving forward along these 8 strategic goals. So before I open this up to any questions and answers, I'm also available online at our website. Some of the data that I'm talking about that comprises our performance manual. We actually have a performance scorecard measured where you can tell at a glance. I don't know how. What's important is, for instance, the first one, the number of fatalities on Nebraska roadways, traffic expressed as traffic fatalities per 100 vehicle miles traveled. The current statistic is there's 1 fatality per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. We set a strategic goal 5 years out to cut that in half, to cut that rate in half from 1.0 to 0.05. And then the progress indicated, a green indicates we're trending in the favorable condition, a yellow says the trend is holding, or a red says the performance is in an unfavorable direction. So just to dive a little bit more deeply on that safety performance measure, this is the kind of performance measure that we invest in and that we keep. It's a table of information, has the calendar year along in the rows, and the first column is the number of fatalities on the Nebraska highway system that occurred in that year. So you can see that in 2002 there were 307 fatalities on the Nebraska highway system. One of the things I'm very proud of is that in 2006 we published the first Nebraska Strategic Highway Safety Plan, in which we set the goal, this goal of 1.0 fatalities per 100 vehicle miles. you can see that in 2006, the actual performance measure at that time was 1.4. And that meant 276 people died in that year. Our goal was, if we achieved 1.0, which we did, 180. 96 safety goal. And we thought that was a stretch goal at the time. And we did it by determining what the main emphasis areas needed to be using data, and that was getting people to wear their seat belts, getting impaired drivers off the road, focusing on younger drivers and older drivers, and preventing run-off-the-road crashes. And we flexed a lot of our money from building the infrastructure to behavioral problems. Seatbelts is a behavioral problem. Impaired driving enforcement is a behavioral problem. We put a lot of our emphasis there, and I really believe our strategic efforts contributed to. You can't say we can take credit for all 96 lives saved, because if you remember, between the years 2006 2011, the economy did some funny things too. So there were fewer people driving fewer miles. That contributed to our favorable results. But I absolutely believe that our strategic efforts saved a lot of those lives too. And so 180 million vehicle, or 181 fatalities is the 1.0 goal. Our new goal is to cut that number down to 90 in a year. Any death is too many deaths. You know, we're on a mission to go towards 0 deaths, but you get there by incrementally setting yourself measurable stretch goals. And so I just think this is one of the best illustrative case for what performance measures can do for an organization. I want to kind of go selectively through some of the others because they fit in with the civil engineering education. This measure is very much a work under development. Very much we'll be looking to the university to help us partner with, but it's the measurement of the number of road closures on Interstate 80 due to crashes, and particularly the average number of minutes per closure. So, you know, there's a crash on the Omaha freeway system, and one or two of the lanes is out of commission. There's a traffic jam, and now the clock is running. How long before we can restore the pre-event level of service? Well, we have a district operations center that we have a series of cameras out on the freeway system. We have embedded instrumentation that tells us what the average travel speed is for the platoon of cars operating on the interstate. We drill with the State Patrol and the Omaha Police and the ambulance drivers on what to do when there is an incident in order to move the cars out of the way and restore the traffic to its pre-event pace. And we don't always do a great job of that. A lot of times there's a crash out there, there's wreckage around. The police want to treat it like a crime scene and block it off and out of my way. I own these 2 lanes for the next 5 hours, you know, and you have to change that culture to say that that's not doing the driving public any favors. So let's first protect the people, the victims, make sure that they're removed from harm's way, then let's move the investigation stuff off the roadway and restore the interstate to mobility again. And what happens in the operations center, the camera communication, the embedded sensors, it's all very much ML and Larry and Ron and company help us decide what it is that the intelligent transportation system can provide to make our performance better. in terms of system reliability. Another key one I want to share with you is pavement condition. Mainly because, as I mentioned earlier, our asset network is valued at $7.5 billion. Probably $6.5 billion of that is in the pavements. We have an awful lot of money invested in concrete and asphalt on that 10,000-mile network. And it's constantly degrading, either from axle poundings from the trucks and the cars or from the weather cycle. That pavement's constantly being under assault. We invest an awful lot of money in an annual inspection, mile by mile. And I told you when I started, I was in a van that drove every mile of every highway. That's a lot more sophisticated these days. It's not a camera up there. It's instrumentation that's measuring the surface condition, the cracking, the spalling, the actual pavement condition, mile by mile of the highway system, and that's converted into a serviceability network that's numerical, and then you can translate a number to miles that are in very good, good, poor, or fair condition. That's how we communicate to the legislature and others about whether we're holding our own with pavement condition. And we're actually, we've shifted our priorities to take our revenues and do the asset preservation first before we do any capital improvement projects to remove congestion, because we're not getting enough revenue to keep our pavements in the state of repair that we need to keep them. Again, it's the critical nature of the performance measures that communicate that to the people who generate your revenue, the people who pay your revenue, and the people who you expect to perform with it. So there are 26 performance measures. They're not exactly aligned yet with the 8 strategic goals that we are developing, and my challenge to my leadership team is we can do better. There are probably performance measures that get to the heart of the matter better than the ones that we have now. Let's develop those. Let's think through this together, and that's really where I am with my executive leadership team. With that, I would really encourage you to open it up to any questions for me, either about strategic goal setting, anything about my career path to the Department of Roads, or who's going to be first? Surely there's a, yes, Valerie. We're a multidisciplinary agency these days. Definitely, we're an engineering bias. We have 150. We employ 150 engineers. We're constantly hiring at the entry-level engineers, pre-professional license engineering, roadway design. Utilities coordination, traffic engineering, project development. So there's a lot of water, hydraulics, hydrology. There's a lot of discipline-based engineering careers. There's also biologists, environmental practitioners is very key to us these days. The right-of-way activities is more of a real estate-based background. Communication people. Communications are key to our activities these days. So very planning, transportation planning, another key area where we recruit people from UNL. Yeah. For Nebraskans, you know, we're a large rural state, so our transportation network is about bringing passenger cars or agricultural product or freight into the metro area markets from rural Nebraska. So keeping that system in a state of good repair is no question our principal challenge. But also in the metro areas, there are parts of the existing network that are congested. If you drive from Lincoln to Omaha regularly at rush hour in the morning, there are parts of Interstate 80 that you can count on every morning. Traffic's going to be 20 miles an hour, not the usual 65 miles an hour through those locations. So the challenge for us is to have the revenue ready and being able to fit it into our priorities to build the traffic relief projects, to install those, to remove those congestion bottlenecks. There's as we project for the Metro Omaha traffic needs, there's going to be a need for an investment in another loop of the interstate. Or if that's a serious alternative that competes with an outer loop road of the interstate, would be a difference in travel patterns. If there's a transit-oriented development, which you see in many of the country's major metros, where there's higher density apartment units rather than suburban single attached houses, and they're developed along transit, good, reliable bus system routes, that kind of development could take the place of another alternative interstate loop around Omaha. It's an important decision you're going to be making with less than perfect information, but it will set the 30 or 40 years. Revenue is always a challenge, Larry. You know, you got 8 strategic goals, you've got performance targets. Now you know how much revenue you need to hit those targets. It's not enough. We don't have enough to keep the system coming in now to keep the system in a state of good repair and mobile enough to do what I think people expect of their transportation system. Have to trust us that we're good stewards with the money they have given us. If we lose confidence that we're not managing the existing money that we have, we'll never get the revenues it takes to do these things. I consider that a huge challenge. And then, you know, we're in a global marketplace now. The people who are producing corn and soybeans in Nebraska are competing on a global market with their corn and soybeans from people in Brazil and Singapore and whatever. And if our transportation system is not efficient, they're at a competitive disadvantage with those other global trading entities. So the challenge for us is to see ourselves as part of an integrated global network. Yes. It's a great question, but we are dynamic and nimble enough in our programming that we can delay a steel and concrete project for a driver behavior project in the middle of a fiscal year. If we see that we need to make some tack our changes a little bit, we can move the rudder that way. But it takes good data systems in order to know when you're there. That's the challenge of it. Another case might be unanticipated bridge failures that just loom up. You weren't anticipating it. Now you've got to fix this bridge. It's on a vital transportation link. You might have to reallocate $10 million from your pavement program to take care of a high priority bridge in 1 year. Things like that. It's called the Nebraska Serviceability Index, and it's really not my technical bailiwick, but it involves actual physical inspection, and so you evaluate map cracking, rutting, the various ways a pavement can fail. They have either visible or instrument methods of seeing what they are in a given highway segment, and then there's a formula that just translates that to a numerical index. So if you are rating it on a scale of 1, grade school network is an 85 is okay, but you were really shooting for a 97, you know, that's how it's based. But it is either instrument, you can measure the rutting. As you're driving down the road, these vehicles do a profile, cross-sectional profile of the roadway, and capture it on a database. So they can measure the two-wheel paths, whether the rutting is 9 millimeters or 12 millimeters, and that goes into the index. The surface cracking and faulting, when a concrete pavement joint separates a little bit, that's the thump, thump, thump you get when you drive down the road. That's measured and assessed and converted to an index. Other questions? Yes. That's a great question. It's the soft skills that really separate the producers from the leaders. So in the first part of your career, you spend developing the professional competence to be an independent producer. And then at a certain point, you realize work gets done by collections of independent producers. You've got to assemble people and get them working together for a result. And that's not as easy to do. And so if you can build teams, do communications, do the soft skills, communicating, written communication, reading the climate of your team and deciding who's playing well with others and who's not playing well with others, or what's this team missing, you know. From other successful projects I've had before, this team's missing something. What is it? It's that kind of intangible thing. Basically, you get a body of work, and when you're going for a promotion, you should have people coming in advocating for you. You know, you shouldn't be the only one out there who thinks you're the one deserving of a promotion. So, those would be my secret key. That's a great question, and it's always a challenge. Oftentimes I have forums where I'm called before the legislature to give a report on the state of the highway system. It's called the needs study. That's the forum I've got to say, here's what we're contributing to the state's welfare, well-being, and I can collaborate with Department of Economic Development or the Department of Agriculture, whatever, but in government I attend agency head meetings from all across the agencies of state government. We talk to each other there. We look for areas of cooperation and collaboration. Yes. We have a great partnership with the university faculty where we are having a dialogue about research that we need, and faculty is letting us know areas of expertise that they have. And so it's really through our research program and our continued network with the university faculty and student interns. We try to hire student interns so that our work and our challenges are shared with the student and the faculty community here. Yes, sir. What are my midterm and short-term plans in sort of very definite. You know, we have a concrete, very concrete 1- and 6-year plan where we say we're going to do the project from Lincoln to Grand Island on the interstate in 2013, and a whole list of other projects in the next 6 years beyond that. And so we take those public, that's very concrete, very literal about what our upcoming plans are, and we take those out to the public, and then they hold us accountable for what we said we were going to spend their money on in those years. And then if we don't have the right projects on there, we hear about that too. You know, that do it for 7 years. What do I pay you for? That kind of a public involvement is a euphemism sometimes. All right. I thank you for your time and inviting me here this morning. Very glad to be here.